Welcome everybody. We're alive, and some major news has come around to me over recent social media takes. Eric Bischoff, the former booker of WCW, and you known him probably if you were my age. He was the former GM of Monday Night Raw around 2002 to 2005, and still has found his way over his tenure, his experience, and just his success over his over 30-year career of being a top backstage personality around the wrestling business. Literally titled 83 weeks, the lifespan of his success over the WWF around the Monday Night Wars. He's the type of person when it comes to on-air success of how to be, trying to grab over the bigger audience on a primetime television for pro wrestling. I take advice from him. If you want to be a pro wrestler, if you want to be a successful pro wrestler, bro, talk to Hulk Hogan, talk to The Rock, talk to John Cena, talk to any of those dudes. But if you want to know how to get successful into how to make a good show, how to get the right guys into the right parts, and just know how to garner over that demographic or that audience that certain wrestling shows nowadays that are televised, that's just WWE and AEW, you want to get advice by the guy who actually did it. So Eric Bischoff had a lot to say over his opinion. That was even retweeted over Jonathan Coachman, seeing how the demographic of AEW is now garnering over a wider audience, and that's why sometimes their ratings will stagnate inconsistently. And I've talked about this numerous amount of times in a bunch of different channels about the way AEW is not garnering over the casual audience, and they'll be more sub-genre, and that will get the type of audience that are not talking about their show as much. Because if AEW was, they would have had another renewed deal with TNT on the spot. But nobody wants to bring that up. So CM Punk coming out over his public discussions over his podcast and then what he tweeted before. CM Punk did not hold back on his thoughts on Eric Bischoff, as the two have different opinions regarding whether wrestling still has casual fans. During AEW's Full Gear post-show media scrum, Punk stated he doesn't believe that there are casual wrestling fans anymore, but rather it's all hardcore fans. Bischoff recently knocked Punk during a recent episode of Strictly Business for thinking that and started Punk doesn't belong in the television business. If he believes that, to be true. Punk responds to a clip Eric Bischoff discussing his belief that AEW needs better storylines, which will lead to growth of their television ratings as they stop booking for the small segment of the audience, for they will get casual fans to watch their programming. And for the takes that Eric Bischoff put in all that, bro, I believe it. That was a good take, because Eric Bischoff been for that shit. Just discussing that before. Eric Bischoff is not garnering over to the you think over WCW and TNA? TNA was around 2 million the time Eric Bischoff was going up, making storylines. And for WCW, they garnered half of the televised audience back then. Majority of people were rather watching Monday Nitro than watching NFL primetime. So you can't delegate over what you think CM Punk has over Eric Bischoff when it comes to success in pro wrestling on television. Punk, you were in gyms. You were thinking that you were a better heel in wrestling. You're the best wrestler in the world in backyards and warehouses, while the guys Eric Bischoff was dealing with on a weekly basis were wrestling in sold-out arenas in football stadiums. What are you talking about? Making no sense around here. Fucking scruffled face ass. Eric Bischoff, oh, sorry, Amari. I didn't get to shout you out. How you doing, Amari? Eric Bischoff was the man who started the second boom period in pro wrestling. You didn't see a boom period in pro wrestling since 1985. None of us were born around them. But guess what? I can still know who most of those guys in the 80s are. Ric Flair, Rick Rude, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant. That's because of the boom period. The boom period around the 2010s, just, oh, you know what CM Punk was. Oh, yeah, I think he lost to The Undertaker. Like, that's CM Punk. You weren't over. You weren't over like how Eric Bischoff was able to get these guys over. So I'm going to continue over the article right here. This is by WrestlingNews.com, by the way, or .co. I don't know if that means corporation. Punk wrote, wrestling Twitter needs to stop amplifying all the old heads, bad faith, bad take, carny dipshit. That's his words, not mine. They had their moment in the sun. Let them die in the dark with their ego podcast. Quote me. Really? Their time in the sun is the only reason why people still talk about wrestling, or the reason why TNT would even spark your ass up for a super indie like AEW. You guys are still staggering around 900K. And sure, for certain televised programs, consistently, that's not a bad thing. If you have consistent overtaking televised ratings, there's nothing wrong with that. But more people would advertise the Mayans or a drug cartel, crime shows. People are talking about other nerd shit like Moon Knight, that new Marvel show that came out on Disney Plus. People would rather talk about other niches because they actually accumulate over a casual audience. People like action drama. People like superheroes. People like seeing fights. And AEW doesn't make sure anybody wants to see a fight. That's not a good look. And you're still discrediting guys that have more success than you, Punk. Why you keep doing that to yourself? Why aren't you taking the opinion? Even Jonathan Coachman, a guy that came over as another secondhand jobber interviewer back in the Attitude Era, the same way as Kevin Kelly, the same way as Tony Schimmel, the same way as Michael Cole. Michael Cole now has a tenure with a 20-year experience making a shitload of money with a great relationship with Vince McMahon and one of the top commentaries on WWE. People can still recognize Michael Cole's voice if you've watched WWE for a long time. And Jonathan Coachman, he came from just a jobber interviewer that was getting bullied by The Rock on SmackDown to now being an ESPN journalist. And Punk, you came out from being you were like the most longest reigning irrelevant world champion to getting pimp smacked in the UFC. Even Eric Bischoff co-tweeted and just put a picture of this is the guy that wanted to be in a real fight. Guess what? You got pimp smacked. It's funny how smarks argue that Eric Bischoff, when AEW hasn't created anything that is over in pop culture, the NWO has still over pop culture today. Yeah, dude, it's over to an extent that AEW knows this. And look, I'm all for inspiration of other sources that was successful, so you can find your own creation on all of it. But you guys think it like the Bullet Club isn't just a ripoff of just DX. You guys are just borderline marks. Oh, guess what? Blood and Guts is just War Games. Multi-man tag matches are already done in like Lucha Libre. You guys have nothing interesting to do. TNA had Ultimate X. WCW has War Games. WWE has Hell in a Cell Elimination Chamber. AEW just has other shit that other people rip off, that they rip off from other successful companies. And Punk garners this around like you're the reason. You only get that like 1 million. You got that one pop in the ratings from a B show. Punk, I swear, Daniel Bryan drew better numbers than you when he debuted on Dynamite. Oh my God. AEW has built from support of the fans before they even had a television deal, as they were looking for an alternative from WWE. Tony Khan has tried to give them the matches they want. Punk joined the promotion last August after being away from wrestling from the wrestling business for 7 years. He's slated to challenge Hangman Adam Page for AEW World Heavyweight title at Double or Nothing this month. And this is what primarily started the conversation around if AEW wanted to get another 500 fans in the room, they need to stop booking for a small segment of the audience. AEW is catering more to that hardcore fan base. And the way Punk is in this swift denial is that you're the one that tries to push out the casuals to begin with, Punk. You're more of these musty wrestling elitists around the 2010s that came over, fuck wrestling entertainment. You guys don't know what real wrestling is. We need the real wrestling fans. That's why we got more of the hardcores. That's not because the product sucks so much that the casuals keep running. They don't want to watch the show. You're one of the reasons why the casuals don't want to watch the show. You're not interesting enough for people to start watching the show. Most of the AEW wrestlers are not over enough to stop the show. How can you even get most of the roster over if you keep signing more guys that can't get over organically until the next couple months hit? They're not garnering enough to get TV ratings until Tony Khan has to keep using his father's own hard-earned money. And I'm not saying this like Eric Bischoff is perfect. Eric Bischoff has done stuff financially, backstage-wise, to why certain businesses has fallen, and not everything's always going to go 100%. But if we can just keep it a buck, AEW is the reason why pro wrestling itself will never be mainstream, because they have no cool factor at all. And just knowing, like, this is the type of denial that we're getting from most companies like Impact Wrestling, that used to be big, Defiance, whatever DPW is, MLW, they are still clutching over to that hardcore audience, never trying to get out of their comfort zone to try to feel like there's something that's beyond our audience level that we can do to make sure that there's more people buying tickets to come so we can get bigger venues. That's how you grow a goddamn promotion. That's how it works. I don't know why that's so hard. And that's why, Punk, you weren't part of that discussion, because over the indie promotions that you go, you're not the reason why Ring of Honor came from basketball little gym rooms around high schools. You're not the reason why they evolved from gym rooms to ballrooms. Okay? You're not the reason why they got their first pay-per-view aired. You're not the reason for that. You're the catalyst of the name value that can't draw. You're an action figure nerd that can't fight a real fight. You never drew AEW when you come up every week. Oh, CM Punk's there, still wearing a boring-ass hoodie, looking like a crack addict, even though he keeps swearing that he's straight edge. There's nothing about you that feels awe-inspiring, Punk. Whenever Hulk Hogan or The Rock, John Cena come out, they make me feel like a leader. Go to the gym, look like I want to be like them when they grow up. Punk, I know just seeing you in the UFC means I can beat your ass in real life. That's the type of overness you give me, Punk. And just understanding that you can't even accept that men that actually got more success than you in the wrestling business, and you don't take any of their criticism, that just shows why AEW is in the type of bullshit that it's going to be, and why not a lot of casual fans are going to garner to your goddamn super indie, and why AEW is still going to stick with their dwindling hardcore fan base until they know that AEW is always going to be the same format, going to be the same style of wrestling, never going to push anything over the envelope, and they'll get pushed where Modern Family's probably beating them in the ratings. Yes, Modern Family reruns are probably more watchable, and Big Bang Theory is more watchable than a pro wrestling show that used to be on where primetime basketball was airing. And it still is. What, you think TBS was a temporary thing because of the NBA playoffs. How, Amari, if you're still over in the chat, how long has Dynamite and Rampage been on TBS? I think around January. So just understanding, like, you can't take this lightly, Punk. It just shows how much of a scuffed baby back bitch you are. Just knowing that you can't take legitimate advice from adults that actually had some success. And how, you know, this is the same thing when Booker T had his opinion set on when Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair were getting booked over for the main event of night 1 of WrestleMania the previous year. And just knowing, like, racist bullshit or being a female's bullshit, you earn the main event because you get to the main event because you earned it. It doesn't matter. Yeah, AEW has been on TV for 3 years. Yeah, I know. Were they on TNT? They were on TNT for 3 years, right? From 2019 to 2021. And then around early 2022, they came over to TBS. Rampage 2, they only do specials now. So they can garner the excuse of thinking like they will be in a consistency if they ever do monthly pay-per-views. Oh, long-term storytelling. No, because you lack so much interest in the weekly televised show that you guys have to do bi-monthly pay-per-views. It's that bad. And doing this Forbidden Door pay-per-view is still not going to make me feel interested because it's giving a promotion still exceeding factors to why it can't draw because it's not with a reliance on its whole roster. Nobody knows people from pro wrestlers from Japan when you're airing this pay-per-view in America. No one's going to know Ring of Honor wrestlers, even though you put their belts always on TV. It's still nobody's going to watch. I don't get it, AEW. I'm really trying to understand. I reviewed your shows. So don't take me like I'm doing this out because I'm a WWE fanboy. I only stream Raw now. So that shows how much my lack of interest on the product has been wavering for all wrestling shows nowadays. And you could tell it off any other successful YouTube channel except probably Dro Cronin that consistently goes over wrestling promotions. So that can't just be me. It can't. That's impossible. And that's showing even the hardcore fan base ain't taking your shit. If they're not going to be, if they're a major reason why you're not on TNT, why aren't you airing where playoff basketball and hockey and playoff hockey is airing every other day? I don't get it. You're not giving me because you got CM Punk, Darby Allin, the best tag team wrestling in the world, Japanese strong style. You think any other wrestling promotion doesn't tell me what other style of wrestling there is? You take that like that's like a type of puppy breed. What type of mixed breed you got? I got Beagle. Dude, you think I care? You take it like NFL football only sticks to one specific style of football. Not everybody's playing air raid in the NFL. That's the point. You're a top promotion. Of course people are going to wrestle different. What? I'm trying to get it. Oh my god. And now I'm seeing over Twitter threads that AEW is just bombing. And CM Punk is getting beaten up again by some UFC guy. It's just knowing, like, great performer and a great person. An even great person. Happy birthday, Kevin Owens. It was a Kevin Owens' birthday around the 7th, I think. and just knowing, like, this is the type of shit you give a guy. I can tell you right now, this is why Punk will never be a star outside of just being WWE. I'm being serious. I'm being truly serious. And this is why AEW will always be in the staggering mediocrity it's always been in. Because it won't accept its own way it is and know it's not good enough. It's not. They don't change the stage. They don't change the format. They don't change the style. There's never a storyline revolving around how the show is placed, so I can feel like every week I have a reason to show up. It doesn't have that. No kid, because I live near I still live around my elementary school. And when I see kids, when I come around on jogs, or just apparently whenever I'm checking the mail and I'm seeing kids walk back from school, I'm seeing them bring their toys. They're coming around dropping action figures, Power Rangers action figures, some John Cena action figure, a Megazord, probably something from The Walking Dead, something from He-Man. They're showing those toys. They're not showing goddamn AEW figures. No one's gonna come home saying that, dude, I just dropped my Rey Fenix figure. They're not saying that. I'm just saying. And I know people are just gonna take it like I'm being harsh, but that's the type of person that CM Punk is. And he's a belittling little bitch that can't take critical opinions. And he's the person like, oh, we'll take opinion. No, you can't. Didn't you just tell a fan to shut the fuck up? You're such a dwindling little shit, Punk, I swear. They lost over 88,000 the previous week around May 8th, like April 27th. And they only got a 32, because the demographic so important, they only got 0.32% on their demographic. 800,000. They haven't hit 1 million since March 23rd of this year. And even since that happened, they haven't hit it since like a 1.1. That's the type of mediocrity that AEW gets. While like Raw now averages around a 1.6. At least a 1.7. They'll at least average around 1.8 around WrestleMania time. Because at least that's where people are supposed to be watching. Excuse me. From Hollywood Hangman Adam Pearce. I'd argue that had AEW catered more into the hardcore fan and tried to keep them happy by not devaluing beloved babyfaces and doing more of with their great undercard, they would have starved off the precipitous decline they had in 1999. Their wrestlers were greater in the WWF and didn't take advantage. Well, I'd agree in that standpoint. The booking was pretty shoddy back around 1999 to 2000. But they still had a card that's more over than AEW currently. Who was the world champion at the last coming days of WCW? I think around DDP and Scott Steiner, Booker T, Kevin Nash, Ric Flair, and I think Jeff Jarrett. That was the only person that was the idea of Vince Russo to consistently put over as a world champion. That was his mistake. Vince Russo, I disagree with him pushing over Tank Abbott and Jeff Jarrett, because Jeff Jarrett was just an okay mid-carder. That's okay getting the heat on. And Tank Abbott was a fat fuck MMA jobber that didn't look like a world champion, other than Vince Russo, he thought he could make another Dan Severn. So, I think that was his idea. Just Jesus Christ. I'm just gonna share it right now, just to display the stupidity. But you take it like AEW's undercard is well developed. The only person that was over around the undercard was around Orange Cassidy, and then they overly pushed him. The worst people got the bitch around WCW was David Arquette is the world champion, but at least I had an idea for people to watch the show. If the pay-per-view buys weren't going to be that good, they had to find a reason to make sure that their weekly television was at least getting the revenue they could. And that's an understandable idea, but a bit shoddy when you still do monthly pay-per-views. Pull up right there for you people to see. That's the type of shit that got CM Punk so upset. And then Punk comes around just saying that this is bad. This is a bad take by a carny. That's the type of respect Punk gives to the guys that made sure that he can still be on television today. This is the type of respect that Punk gives to guys that probably would be the reason why he's had an opportunity to be on Monday Night Raw for several years, or AEW Dynamite, or anywhere on television where he had to actually do actual fighting. It's ridiculous. I don't get it. I don't. I wish I would be more polite to CM Punk. Well, what about Punk feels like he can take critical opinions? I'm being serious. Telling fans to shut up, not taking opinions from legends, putting his own best friend that works in the same business as him under the bus. I don't know. I'm not. He convinced himself since he could win scripted fights, he could win a real one by Eric Bischoff. God damn. God damn. Oh my god. Oh, dude, that is brutal. So that's technically what I have on the merit. I'll share this one too, because this one's hilarious, man. I'll share this one in just a few seconds, people. That's what Eric Bischoff put as a major clapback by the biggest mark in the wrestling business, and he probably is having so much to say because he thinks he's gonna get a prop to get himself over, and thinking like that's gonna get the fans all because CM Punk's world champion. He convinced himself since he could win scripted fights, he could win real ones. And it shows his battered and beaten ass face when he got his ass kicked. And I think that was his first UFC fight. So that's CM Punk. The biggest mark in pro wrestling. And that's all I got to say about that, guys. I didn't want to overstay my welcome here in the wrestling, here in the stream. And, just give you the information. And, take it with all the opinions. Just take it with all the information I've given you. That's it coming from me. Thanks for watching the DST show. And thanks for watching.